An older man DM'd me a story about what happened after he found his staircase in the woods. He said he doesn't tell this story very often because he's not proud of his part in this. He wanted to be anonymous because he said he doesn't want anyone to know his history who doesn't already know it, and there's a certain stigma attached to people with mental illness, so he doesn't want to come off as crazy to anyone who might not know this history about him. Trigger warning on this story because it does get a little bit dark, a little bit violent. We're going to call him Toby to respect his privacy, and the story takes place about 10 years ago, although Toby is 56 now. He was hiking near Mammoth Cave in Kentucky with his then 15-year-old son and 12-year-old daughter. Hiking was a normal activity for them. They live not too far from there in Kentucky, but his wife wasn't with them that day. Toby said up until this point in his life, he lived a relatively normal life. He had no history of mental illness or anger issues. He had a relatively good relationship with his wife, normal squabbles, and he worked the same job for almost 20 years at that point. He said he was living a normal American suburban life. So him and his kids come across a staircase in the middle of the woods. His son immediately goes to go up it, and he goes, "Hey, make sure it's stable. Actually, you know what? Let me go up first." He says his family were outdoorsy people, so it wasn't the first time that they had come across a staircase in the woods. A lot of times they're just left from old settlements or whatever, but this was the first time they saw that particular staircase. So he tells his son that he's going to climb it first, and he started descending the steps. He noticed that they were very clean. Despite it was fall weather, there were no leaves on the staircase. So he walks all the way up to the top. He notices it's a little bit rickety. It doesn't really seem safe for his son. So he's standing at the top. His son's like, "How is it? Can I come up?" And he said out of nowhere, he hears a voice clear as day say, "Unalive them." He said it wasn't his voice, it wasn't his son's voice, it wasn't his daughter's voice. So he is shocked. He looks around, there's nobody else out there, but he said he audibly heard the voice. So he just is like, what is going on? So he climbs down the stairs. He tells his son, "Don't go up there. It's not safe." The voice that he heard kind of shook him a little bit because he had never had a violent urge toward his children. He loved them very much. They're driving home, and he's struck with the urge to drive into oncoming traffic. They get home. His wife's like, "How was the hike?" He tells her it was fine. He doesn't tell her about the voice or anything. He said in the first few weeks after that hike, his mood changed. It was like a gray fog settled over everything. He was getting angry at very minor inconveniences. He was often hearing voices that told him to harm himself and others. He would wake up in the middle of the night from nightmares and cold sweats. And him and his wife, we're going to just call her Kelly, they were arguing about everything. He would snap at her, and on one occasion he put his hands on her, which he says he still regrets to this day. After that happened, I guess he gave her a black eye. She took the kids, and they were all staying at her sister's house, and his voices only got worse. He was still going to work. He was trying to manage it. He had actually made an appointment with a therapist to try to get it under control, but before he went to the therapist's office, he ends up snapping at his boss over a minor email. I guess the boss said that he forgot to do something, and he marched into his boss's office and threatened his life. He said while he was staring at his boss, he was fuming. He looked at a pen that was sitting on his boss's table, and he had to fight the urge to stab him through the throat. Obviously, he gets fired. Security gets called. He is escorted out. He's driving home when a guy cuts him off in traffic. They pull up at a light. The guy and him are MFing each other through the window, and all of a sudden he just snaps. He gets out of his car. He goes over to the other guy's car, tries the door. It opens. He pulls the guy out and beats the ever-living crap out of him. He said he beat him so badly that the man started having seizures, and he continued to kick him in the head. Obviously, he's arrested. He ends up getting an aggravated assault charge. He goes to jail. He was sentenced to 3 years, but he said for good behavior, he was released after 18 months. After he was released, part of his release parole was court-ordered therapy. In therapy, he is diagnosed as a schizophrenic, and he said he's still living with that diagnosis today. He's trying to manage it. He still hears the voices. A lot of times they talk about going back to the staircase in the woods. He says he still continues to have nightmares about it. He is working on rebuilding the relationship with his kids, who have started kind of coming back around. He says he's turned to God. He's turned his life around, but every day is a struggle living with these voices. He says the staircase in the woods phenomenon is a rabbit hole, and he's explored it to the ends of the earth. A lot of other people, I guess, have gone up staircases and felt like they had something negative attached to them after ascending the stairs. He says his therapist just tells him that it's a mental disorder and that he is doing everything he can to manage it. But he ended his email with a warning. He said if you come across a staircase in the woods, absolutely don't go up it. And if you feel like you're struggling with mental health, it's better to talk to somebody now. Thanks, Toby, for sharing your story. I know it's really heavy. I wish you all the best and healing, and I hope everything gets better for you. Everybody else, keep sending me your spooky, weird, unbelievable things you think that no one would ever believe you or you don't want to tell. Keep sending me those stories. I'll keep adding them to this playlist.